Some major events happened involving Elon Musk and the Tesla board this Thursday. First, the Wall Street Journal published an article accusing the Tesla board of searching for a CEO to replace Elon Musk. According to the article, this happened last month, and despite no sources cited and Tesla telling them ahead of time it's false, they still printed the story. Both Tesla and Elon Musk immediately stated this is a deliberately false article. Elon clearly mentioned at last month's earnings call he's stepping down from Doge specifically to spend more time with Tesla. We'll also watch President Trump thank Elon for his service. Finally, we'll address the other common TeslaQ hit piece where they accuse the Tesla board and executives from always selling their Tesla stock. This is just not true, and we'll explain exactly what's happening. I've got Larry Goldberg joining us today. Welcome, Larry.
Thanks. Great to be here, Herbert.
Yeah, so there's a number of these topics that I think you're a perfect person to explain to us what's going on. You're a long-term investor in Tesla, and we continue to see these kind of hit pieces that keep coming out. So this latest one came out on Wednesday night. Tesla board open search for a CEO to succeed Elon Musk. This is a Wall Street article. It's very long, but there's no sources to it. So they basically announced that this is the case. Just to point it out, in the past, Elon himself has said this. This is 2022. This is not the first time. Wall Street Journal's run so many BS hit pieces on me and Tesla, I've lost count. It's embarrassing for them, frankly. They once wrote an article saying FBI was about to arrest me. So I called the FBI to ask what's up, and they said the Wall Street Journal article was total BS. More short seller FUD. This is 2022. So immediately Tesla replied saying earlier today there was a media report erroneously claiming that the Tesla board had contacted recruitment firms to initiate a CEO search at the company. This is absolutely false, and this was communicated to the media before the report was published. They still published it. The CEO of Tesla is Elon Musk, and the board is highly confident in his ability to continue executing on an exciting growth plan ahead. Robin Denholm is the chairwoman of the Tesla board, and Elon himself replied saying it's extremely bad breach of ethics that the Wall Street Journal would publish a deliberately false article and fail to include an unequivocal denial beforehand by the Tesla board directors. What's going on, Larry?
It's very hard to overstate just how serious and how bad this is. I canceled my Wall Street Journal subscription 2 years ago because, it had become just obvious that they had not the editorial board, but the journalists had really developed this antipathy towards Elon. I don't understand the reason for it. I understand there was a guy in the Heard in the Street column and the back page of the Wall Street Journal that was friendly with Chanos, at that time a very constant short seller of Tesla. He lost a lot of money on his short sales, apparently. And this guy was the son of a great friend of Chanos. And he started writing really, really seriously erroneous reports in the Heard on the Street, which, kind of shills these journalists because these are opinions being expressed by journalists. They're not journalists, they're opinion, expressors. And so I really gave up on the Wall Street Journal because it wasn't just the reporting on Elon, but it was the general demise of, fact-based reporting in the Wall Street Journal amongst the journalists, as opposed to the editorial page, which I thought was a pretty good page and still is a pretty good page. Anyway, the point is, this is really, really bad journalism. And notice the time of day that they put this report out. They put it out after 9 o'clock at night. Well, everybody knows it's impossible to get a board together to answer an accusation against a board.
Interesting.
Robin Denholm's in Australia. I mean, it was the absolutely calculated moment to put a report out that would take Tesla 4 to 5 hours, 5 hours as it turned out, to respond. And, it's just calculated to send the price down. Now, it would be really worthwhile checking to see which journalists from the Wall Street Journal, sold which shares or bought which puts. I think it warrants an investigation because it is such a consistent practice now Wall Street Journal article, sinks the stock even overnight, overnight trading. The company denies it the next day, stock goes back up again. I mean, it's the perfect play. The
Yeah.
perfect play. Where is the SEC?
That's a very good point, by the way. Appreciate you saying that. These authors here is Emily Glazer, Becky Peterson, Dana Mattioli. They've got to be put to some sort of test here, because they were told ahead of time. So this is one thing to say this, and then another thing to be told ahead of time and not say that Tesla has denied this, the board has denied this already, and they don't have any sources. So let's just go through this. Just FYI, last earnings call a couple of weeks ago, Elon said this: starting next month, I will be allocating far more of my time to Tesla. Okay. He said, I'm going to stop reducing my time with Doge, and I'll be allocating far more time to Tesla. And he said, we must execute well. But if we do execute well, I think Tesla will be the most valuable company in the world by far. We must execute well. So this is the actual article, and it says here, about a month ago, with Tesla stock sinking and some investors irritated about Elon's White House focus, Tesla's board got serious about looking for Musk's successor. Board members reached out to several executive search firms to work on a formal process for finding Tesla's next CEO, according to people familiar with discussions. Okay. And would board members reach out to executive search firms? Tell me if that's what you would think.
The chance of an executive search firm finding a replacement for Elon Musk at Tesla is vanishingly small. Vanishingly small. Any replacement for Elon Musk at Tesla would be a person that the board would already be very, very, very familiar with. The last place they would go for an executive, the very
it's
last
a job
place
board
they would go is a search firm.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, firstly, that's going to get public almost immediately.
Yeah.
And secondly, who can an executive search firm find that can replace Elon Musk any better than the board, the current board, and their connections?
This
I mean,
ridiculous.
Come on.
It was dumb.
One of the things I saw in the chats in X is, Rupert Murdoch's on the board of the corporation that owns Wall Street Journal. Therefore, he must have known, and they must have asked him. No, There's an absolute Chinese wall between the journalists, the editorial staff, and the executive staff. And Wall Street Journal has a particularly airtight wall. Why? Because when Murdoch actually bought the Wall Street Journal, he entered into an agreement allowing the journalists to have this absolute block on the board of directors. And so there's this sort of animus between the journalists and the ownership of the Wall Street Journal. So the journalists keep themselves very independent of it. But this speaks to the need to break down that wall and for Murdoch to take some kind of control, because it's out of control at the moment. The Wall Street Journal news pages have become quite woke. They actually compete with the Washington Post and New York Times in their wokeness. And it's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong.
So I'm not going to read the entire article, but just this one paragraph says, around that time, Tesla's board, a month ago, Tesla's board met with Musk for an update. Board members told him he needed to spend more time on Tesla, according to people familiar with the meeting. So who would be familiar with the meetings for board members? And he needed to say so publicly. Musk didn't push back. Okay, so that's fair. He didn't, that's fine. Maybe that could have been it. Again, it's a very long article, not really saying much. So Elon did say at the earnings call, he did say that. So this is like a nothing burger. There was nothing here. Like, instead of saying, hey, we're searching, we're going to kick you out. Well, he didn't kick him out, but you need to say something at the Doge, and he did. So let's watch what he actually ended up saying yesterday. The timing is so funny, right? Because this actually happened at the time when Elon was being thanked by President Trump at the White House. Let's watch those videos of, what happened here. So.
Well, we all want to thank you for your help, too. You really have sacrificed a lot, been treated very unfairly.
Well, they do like to burn my cars, which is not great. You know, could be better.
But you have been treated unfairly, but the vast majority of people in this country really respect and appreciate you, and this whole room can say that very strongly. You've really been a tremendous help. You opened up a lot of eyes as to what could be done, and we just want to thank you very much. And you know, you're invited to stay as long as you want. At some point, I guess he wants to get back home to his cars and his. You've done an incredible job.
Yeah. So obviously it's, I couldn't, the volume was low there for a little bit, but that's President Trump thanking Elon. And it sounds like that he's going to spend less time with Doge now. This is kind of official. And then of course this article comes out now.
Well, it should come as no surprise to anybody. You know, he's employed by Doge. He's unpaid volunteer on Doge, and those volunteers are limited the amount of time that they can spend per year on those voluntary assignments. So his time is about up anyway, and everybody knew this was coming. So I don't understand the angst around it. Anyway, some people got the more opposed they were to him politically, the more voluble they became.
Yeah. Just to show you that this is the kind of like the other video here. Yeah. It's like the timing is just really, really weird. You got Robin Denholm, the chairwoman of Tesla board. She came out, got interviewed by Financial Review, and she said Tesla's board isn't trying to oust Elon Musk. She had a very busy day, appearance at Sunrise, a startup conference by Blackbird, the venture capital firm where she's a director. Then there was the Wall Street Journal, reported the board where she's chairwoman. So she had to reply right away. She said, Tesla has been swimming upstream for the entirety of its existence. For me, I need to make sure the team is focused on what they need to deliver. No industry change, no world change has ever happened with one company. We've welcomed and have, in fact, waited for a long time to have viable competitors because we need them to actually make the leap to sustainable energy. The fact China is going all in on electric vehicles and sustainable energy is a good thing. Last week, she was at Giga Texas, and she said they know what their North Star is. They know what it is they're trying to do and are just getting on with it. It's a big mission. We're not there yet, but we've made tremendous progress over the past 10 years. What's your thoughts on what she said there?
Well, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, everybody wants to criticize Robin Denholm, but she's been an outstanding chairperson in my judgment. I mean, she hasn't got in the way, but she's been extremely supportive. And the evidence of it is the vote at the last annual meeting. I mean, at the shareholders meeting, she got enormous support for the resolution, and she shepherded the company through that resolution process. So I have the highest regard for Robin Denholm. And look, she gave up a really, really top corporate job at Tesla, the top Australian communications company. I mean, she had a very, very senior job. She was on the board. She was senior manager, senior executive, and she gave that up in order to take over the chairmanship of Tesla. And so, that was a very, very big sacrifice on her part, and she's played the role brilliantly. I mean, she's made the space for Elon. She's made sure Elon's got the board support. She's been incredibly helpful in terms of getting the board through this process of the revote on Elon's pay package. And she put together in the board this process to counter what the Delaware court did. So she's been an amazing chairperson, just the chairperson needed by Elon and just the chairperson needed by the shareholders of Tesla.
Okay, let's address one of the common attacks. Another common attack is that these board members, these executives at Tesla, they're insiders, that they don't buy the stock. And in fact, they sell as fast as they can, huge amounts of money that they sell, right? We did just have Joe Gebbia, the co-founder of Airbnb, a board member of Tesla, buy $1 million worth. But people said, yeah, okay, great. We had an insider first time buying in 5 years, since 2020. And he only bought $1 million, and the guy's worth, $7 billion or something like that, multi-billion dollars. This is like a drop in the bucket for him. Now he is being up for re-election. I think maybe he just kind of put it out there just to get his name out there.
He's not the first board member to buy shares in Tesla, not by any manner of means. So, the chairperson and founder of Oracle
Yep.
bought $30 million
Larry Ellison.
of shares that turned into billions of dollars of shares when he, Larry Ellison, was a board member, or became a board member, was appointed as a board member of Tesla. So it's not true that board members haven't bought shares, but actually it's even less true because, as it turns out, board members have constantly bought shares. And how? When their options expire, many of them buy shares with those options.
Yeah.
And our current chairperson actually bought shares within the last year.
Let me set it up, and then I want you to explain to people exactly what's happening, because this is such a huge misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Okay. So even Tesla bulls get it wrong, right? So we see this sent to our emails, and it's basically said here that Tesla chair Robin Denholm filed to sell $32 million in Tesla stock. This was just, Wednesday that this happened. So you can see here, right? She sold stock option, 112,000 shares, and she sold the securities. So she sold 32 million. Now you explained what's actually happening. People will say, oh, these board members, they're just selling their shares. Can you explain to us what actually is happening?
Yeah, I mean, it is so distressing to see, people like Sawyer post this. Actually, Sawyer withdrew that post.
Right.
Once I posted the explanation, but it's very simple. Board members, for their services, get awarded options on the shares. They get awarded, let's take Robin Denholm, tens of thousands of options. People then calculate those options as if they're shares, and they multiply the number of options they have by the share price. They say, oh, she's got $500 million. No, she hasn't got anything like $500 million. What she has is the right to buy a share at a specific price. And it's typically much lower than the price is expected to be at the time the options become vested and before they expire. So what happens is, as the expiry date for the options come closer and closer, the option holder is faced with this conundrum. In order to create value out of the option, they have to convert that option into stock, and then that stock becomes worth a lot more than the option was set for. Presumably the option price is below the strike price. Well, the problem with that is very simple. The difference between the option price and the share price is taxable. Mm-hmm. And that tax can be, up to 40%, up to 60% of the value of the share. So in Robin's case, for example, when she actually converts, say, $10 million worth of options into $10 million worth of shares, she gets faced with a $5 million tax bill. And when you own shares, you don't have cash. So you've got to sell at least a portion, at least 50% of the shares you're awarded in order to pay the tax on them. So if you look at Robin's case, she got awarded what people say are worth $500 million of shares. Well, they weren't $500 million when they were awarded. They were dramatically less than that. They were, maybe $10 million or maybe $30 million, somewhere in that range, that she had to wait for over the period of time, before she could realize them, because they were set, the strike price on them was set as higher than the share price. Well, she has only another 4 or 5 months left for the time before the options expire.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got to actually sell those options in order to get any value out of them. Even if she wants to convert them all to shares, she's still got to actually sell 50% of what she converts in order to cover the tax. And here's the interesting thing, that Robin Denholm has consistently increased the number of shares she owns. She went from, I don't know, a few thousand shares to now she acquired 25,000 shares. And so she owns 25,000 shares of stock. Is it 25 or 50? I need to look that up. 85,000 shares. She's bought 60,000 shares in the last year alone. She now owns 85,000 shares, and she's still got a few 100,000 options that are going to expire in August of this year, and she has to realize those options now, otherwise she loses all this value. So the whole concept that she's got $500 million and that she sold all her shares is completely wrong. She has not sold all her shares. She's actually increased her shareholding quite considerably. And she sold shares, yes, in order to pay tax, and she's taken some profit. But look, she gave up a serious executive position in Telstra, the largest communications company in Australia. She had a very, very top position. She gave all that up to take on this chairmanship, and she's done an incredible job as chairman of this company. Look where Tesla stands today. Look at its opportunity today. I mean, any chairman of any company that headed a company that positioned it in this situation would be, adulated. In the meantime, we have even Tesla bulls, decrying her for selling her stock. It's just terrible. We should thank her every day of the week for the work that she's done and for giving Elon the space she's given him and for having his back.
Thank you for explaining all that. Just tremendous misunderstanding. Then, in fact, Robin is buying shares. She sells some to pay the taxes, but she's ending up with more shares over time. And then, of course, there's many others who just have regular, they pre-planned sales of shares. If you have a lot of shares of any company, it's prudent for you to set up a time, every quarter. Doesn't matter what the stock is. I'm going to sell some, just to make it clear that I'm not timing the market. So everybody's being accused of this. Thank you for explaining that. That's really important. I do support Robin Denholm as well, and I hope that more people do as well, because there's so many attacks recently. Oh, what's she worth for? Nothing. They do nothing. Okay. So Elon, this news came out. The stock fell. There are some people that said, good. We don't want Elon. He causes more trouble than I just can't understand people who say that. But what about the idea that for all of Elon's companies, he actually does have a top CEO, COO that runs the company, except for Tesla. And so at some point, he really shouldn't have to be the CEO of Tesla. He can be the chief technology officer, the product officer. He doesn't need to be the CEO and have somebody else, kind of an operator, run it. So I'd be open to that, but
no, the criticism of that position, and I agree with the criticism of it, is that the difference between Tesla and his other companies is scale and diversity. We see in SpaceX that they're really three separate businesses. There's the Falcon launch business, there is the Starship launch startup, and then there's Starlink. Three very clearly separate businesses. There are probably some sub businesses within that, but that's the broad brush of it. And they have, at the top of their operation, they have Gwynne Shotwell, who's, chief operating officer. She's functionally, I think, what you would call a chief executive officer. She's not. I mean, I don't think Gwyn takes a meaningful strategic decision without serious consultation with Elon.
Right.
And that's the same is true, by the way, of the top managers of each of those other businesses. They will definitely run their question by Gwyn, but before anything is decided, they will ask Elon. Makes him the CEO, makes her the COO. And by the way, the same is true on the financial side. They have very strong CFO, but I think that he, obviously will speak to Elon about any major issue, as well as Gwyn, but seriously, it's Elon that's going to make the financial decisions. Now, if you turn to, Tesla, the difference between Tesla and SpaceX is just the number of operations, the scope of the operation, the size of the operations. And what you'll find is that they have very senior people at the head of each of those operations. So I think that in the case of Tesla, given how disparate those operations are, given how many disparate operations there are, it would be very hard to find an operating officer, chief operating officer, and functionally, he probably has multiple chief operating officers at the head of each of those disparate businesses. But he's got a fairly large office of the CEO. He has several people that actually execute his orders within this office of the CEO. And I think that makes up for it. So he has a comfortable style at Tesla, and he's not going to let go easily because he's trying to force Tesla into a role that they didn't find comfortable with. Most of the Tesla management would have taken a different direction, as we now know, as we read in Walter Isaacson's book. So I think that in the case of Tesla, having that iron fist across all the businesses is quite important. Hasn't been that important at SpaceX for some time, because the strategy for SpaceX is so unitary, it's so clear, and it's so direct.
Get us to Mars. And we are right at the precipice of, so we're in the middle of switching, right, from an auto business to a robotics AI company, an AI company. We're about to launch robotaxi. We're about to scale robots. And this is the time that Elon goes, hey, I'm going to leave you, or the board fires Elon. It's it's ridiculous.
I can understand how outsiders to Tesla, and even some Tesla, followers, would not have followed the logic of my argument. But if you are really engaged in Tesla, study it in great detail, I think you can see that what he's trying to do at Tesla is not something that a classic or a
CEO,
conventional CEO would be comfortable with. Not at all. A conventional CEO would cover their ass, offset the risk, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you only have to read Gary Black's analysis, which is good analysis, I don't underestimate Gary. I mean, he's been right more times than I have. Don't underestimate Gary. But if you read his analysis, you'll see that, the conventional approach would not be what Elon's approach is. Now, Elon could be wrong. And the stock could go to zero.
I put my bet on Elon. He's been right. He's been right.
And for those that do, and those that understand where he's going and what he's doing, there's no room for a CEO at Tesla. Will there be in a year's time or 2 years' time? Yes, or chief operating officer, really, I'm thinking about. A Gwyn Shotwell type? Absolutely. Yeah. And could a Gwyn Shotwell operate in Tesla today? Yeah, I believe CEO. She could.
Yeah, we need a CEO.
An incredible person.
An operator.
A 1 in a million, 1 in a billion kind of person to be able to operate in that environment and to have the level of trust and confidence that comes only from 20 years of relationship. So you're not going to find anybody at the moment.
Yeah.
To do that.
So first of all, I say that we need a COO, but we actually don't, because like you said, the office of the CEO, these guys are running the show. You've got, these each one of them is running their departments and they're doing it very, very, very well. Yeah. Elon is not there already. He hasn't been there, like in the sense that he's already focused on Doge. He comes back and clears up all the red fires. But you've got these very competent executives running these shows. It's not like the gigafactories would stop if Elon left. They would keep running very, very well.
And they wouldn't even stop if some of the if we lose 1 or 2 or 3 senior people, because the people under them are so good. Look, we lost the entire team, the entire supercharging team, and they didn't pause a blip. Actually, I saw a post today by somebody who said, well, they had 20% less posts put in this quarter than the previous quarter, in following quarters than the previous quarters when the team lost. No, that's not true. Because what he didn't count was the number of sites where they've converted V3 to V4 chargers. So you've had this entire technology change happening at the same time. And by the way, at the same time, they've redeveloped the mega charger to fit within the form factor of the V4 charger. Did you see that?
I saw that. Yeah, what they're using for the Semi is actually as the reuse of the same parts that they're using for the regular chargers.
They're using the same form factor, which is quite miraculous. That form factor is so much better than the form factor. So what I'm trying to say is that
the progress still happened.
There hasn't been a. No. Now that isn't to say that we undermine and underestimate the quality of the work done previously. All that I'm saying is that the quality of people at Tesla haven't changed one bit.
Yeah. I also think the other big point we need to talk about is Elon's request to have 25% voting rights, because he is transforming this company, and the world is transforming, by the way, into AI, robotics AI. And it doesn't matter if Tesla stops doing robotics AI, it's happening. And so I'm
ready to dilute my stock. If that's what Elon wants, I'm ready to do it.
I'm ready to give him too, because he's going to make robotics the big thing, and he needs to control that. And I would trust him over so far any other CEO I can think of, the Mag 7 or anything like that. I just don't trust anybody.
Going back 3 years,
so we'll see.
Going back 3 years, which CEO on earth would have decided in the middle of the year, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go into robotics. I mean, is it 4 years or 3?
4 years or 4 years. Yeah, it seems like it's been longer than that. But yes.
Somebody decided that we're going to take this very successful auto company. At that time, they were at the peak of their auto sales. And we were going to stop being an auto company. We're going to become a robo-taxi. And we're going to invest in robotics, in humanoid robotics, all at the same time. Now, what CEO on earth would make that decision in a large multi-trillion-dollar public company? Not one. Not one.
And even after he did that, they started following him, but a little bit too late. So it's weird timing that this is just not something that's believable. Elon himself, Tesla himself, there might be like pieces of it, like maybe the board did call him up and say, cause they needed to have a meeting. Look, peak Elon Tesla hate, Elon Doge hate that was happening. They need to talk. That might have happened for sure. But the rest of this, dumb. Okay. I appreciate your analysis, but the part I really wanted you to really explain to people is that the board members are not selling stock. They are theoretically, but there's you explained the stock options expiring and the stock options purchase and transformation to sales.
It's a technical process.
Yeah. Appreciate it, Larry. Yeah. Talk to you soon. Follow Larry on his X account, Tesla Larry. Bye all. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.